want to learn the way to win, but never to accept the way to lose. To accept defeat, to learn to die is to be liberated from it. So when tomorrow comes, you must free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying.
Bruce Lee died suddenly on July 20th, 1973. This event surprised and saddened fans around the world. Since then, many people have been trying to figure out how he died, but there's a lot of confusing and conflicting information. It almost seems like something from one of his action movies. People are still asking, what really happened? Was his death just a sad accident, or was something else going on? We'll look into the mystery that has kept people talking for so long. On the 10th of May in 1973, a significant and troubling event unfolded on the set of Enter the Dragon involving Lee. It was right after the crew had paused for a lunch break that a commotion erupted from the bathroom located on an upper floor of the set. Intrigued and concerned, he made his way upstairs to investigate the source of the loud cries for help. Upon entering, he found himself face to face with a legend in distress, who seemed to be struggling with his health, uttering confusing phrases like, "Remember his mouth, a stove." If you thought this is horrible, that's because you didn't see this. It quickly became apparent that the man was in the throes of an epileptic seizure. Acting swiftly, he used a spoon as a makeshift safety tool to prevent the man from injuring himself further, placing it in his mouth. In the midst of this emergency, the producer arrived and promptly arranged for the man to be transported to the hospital for medical attention. That same day, but from a different perspective, another individual recounted their routine day working in the office of the emergency facility at Baptist Hospital. This facility was uniquely designed with an entrance that led directly to the emergency room on the third floor, following a steep driveway. The memory of receiving the call about an emergency involving someone from the Golden Harvest studio, potentially linked to Bruce Lee or his team, remains a bit hazy. It was past 5 p.m., a time when the emergency room typically saw a decrease in activity and staff availability. However, an unexpected surge of urgency occurred when a vehicle hurriedly approached, delivering Bruce Lee to the hospital in a rather unconventional and alarming manner. He was carried in, much like one would carry a heavy, inanimate object, by a group of men who were visibly shaken by the ordeal. They quickly placed him on the examination table and then disappeared, leaving a sense of chaos behind. The hospital staff present were few, designated for that time and area, and were visibly overwhelmed and anxious about the unfolding situation. The witness found themselves somewhat isolated as curiosity and concern drew people to observe, yet reluctance kept them from getting too involved in the emergency response. Bruce Lee's condition was dire. He was struggling to breathe, his body covered in sweat, with large drops glistening across his skin, indicating the severity of his state. This scenario was not entirely unfamiliar to the witness, who had previously encountered situations involving famous or notable individuals brought in under emergency circumstances, observing how it often led to a mix of fascination and fear among those present, with many opting to keep their distance from the immediate response efforts. The man was displaying signs of physical distress, exhibiting involuntary jerking movements without responding to any attempts to communicate with him. His body alternated between being limp and stiff, while his eyes showed no reaction to light, and at times his neck appeared unusually stiff. It's recognized that people from China, especially those from the southern regions, are prone to certain medical conditions related to the blood vessels in the brain, including both arteries and veins. These conditions can lead to serious health emergencies and are a common cause of death, a fact supported by extensive research, notably from studies conducted by institutions like the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Hong Kong. The observer suspected that the man might have suffered from a stroke or similar issue, affecting his brain's blood vessels. Information was scarce, as those who had brought him in were quick to leave the scene, but it was pieced together that he'd been discovered either inside or just outside the bathroom, having collapsed to the ground. Whether he was found unconscious or lost consciousness shortly after was unclear, as he was unable to provide any details about what had happened to him. Given the urgency of the situation, there was no time to reach out to his family or handle anything beyond the immediate care required by the man, whom they recognized as Bruce. This episode left the medical personnel with a challenging situation. The man's condition necessitated immediate and focused medical attention, limiting any efforts to gather more comprehensive background information or contact his relatives for further insight. The circumstances of his discovery, partially inside and partially outside the bathroom, suggested a sudden health crisis that rendered him incapacitated. The rarity and complexity of his symptoms, combined with the limited information available from the fleeting individuals who had brought him in, compounded the challenge of providing effective treatment. This situation highlighted the difficulties healthcare providers often face when dealing with emergencies involving well-known personalities, where the immediate need for medical intervention takes precedence over all other considerations, including the gathering of full medical history or the involvement of family members. The emergency department at Baptist Hospital was equipped to a satisfactory level, yet it lacked a significant amount of gear for reviving patients. As the doctor started treating the patient, it became evident that the situation would become dire without successful revival efforts. In an attempt to save the patient, the doctor resorted to using an ambu-bag, a device consisting of a mask attached to a sizable, compressible black rubber container. This tool was crucial for manually controlling the patient's breathing by pressing the bag to regulate the air's flow and frequency into the lungs. Furthermore, the doctor recognized the need to maintain the patient's airway open. However, the patient was not cooperative and attempted to reject any insertions meant to assist with his breathing. Faced with this challenge, the doctor requested the assistance of the designated emergency room nurse to reach out to several anesthesiologists the doctor knew well. Among the contacted specialists was Dr. Cecilia Wong, a highly skilled and renowned anesthesiologist based in Hong Kong. Upon receiving the urgent call and understanding the grave nature of the situation, Dr. Wong made her way to the hospital promptly. Her arrival was eagerly anticipated, given her expertise and the critical condition of the patient that required immediate and expert intervention. The medical team faced the challenge of not having a portable resuscitation device available. To overcome this, they managed to obtain a heavy anesthesia machine from the operating room on the 4th floor. This machine was equipped with oxygen canisters, tubing, and other necessary equipment for resuscitation efforts. The next step involved a procedure known as intubation on the patient, Bruce. This process required extending Bruce's neck and inserting a red rubber tube, which was the standard at the time, though plastic tubes are more commonly used now. The tube, reinforced with a spring liner, was carefully guided through Bruce's mouth and into his trachea or windpipe. A balloon at the tip of the tube was then inflated, allowing the medical team to have complete control over the patient's breathing. Bruce was then connected to a supply of pure oxygen to ensure he received the necessary air to breathe. Intubation was particularly important in Bruce's case because of the risk that he might vomit or aspirate, or inhale his stomach contents into his windpipe, which could be life-threatening. To prevent this, a stomach tube was inserted to keep his airway clear of any such material. Establishing an intravenous line proved to be a challenging task. Although Bruce had large, easily visible veins, his erratic movements made it difficult to insert the IV needle, especially since he was very strong, even in a comatose state. After some effort, the team successfully started the IV and began administering fluids. They closely monitored Bruce's blood pressure, which was beginning to drop, and assisted his breathing. All the while, they continued their efforts to diagnose his condition, highlighting the urgency and complexity of providing critical care in such a challenging scenario. Despite the urgent rush to get Bruce Lee to the hospital, it was already too late. The medical team worked fast, trying everything they could to save him. They had to put a tube into his throat to make sure he could breathe, which shows just how serious the situation was. They also had to get an IV into him to try and stop his blood pressure from dropping too low, which was a big challenge because he was moving a lot, even though he wasn't awake. This shows how strong Bruce was, even in such a critical condition. Dr. Cecilia Wong, a very skilled doctor, and her team didn't waste a minute. They brought in a big machine from the operating room to help him breathe and gave him pure oxygen. They were really worried he might breathe in his own vomit if he threw up, which could have made things worse, so they put another tube into his stomach to keep it clear. Now, despite these intense efforts, including closely watching his vital signs like blood pressure and giving him fluids through the IV, the sudden swelling in Bruce's brain was too much for any treatment to reverse. The doctors and nurses did everything possible, using all the tools and knowledge they had to try to save him. But Bruce Lee's condition was too severe from the start. His extraordinary physical strength, which had made him a legend, now made it even harder for the medical team to manage his care in these last critical moments. The whole situation was a desperate battle against time and the severity of his condition, showing the dedication and skill of the medical team trying to save the man who was not just a martial arts icon, but also a beloved global star. Right after Lee's passing, newspapers in Hong Kong were filled with eye-catching headlines, each one trying to outdo the others in speculation. One headline announced, "Superstar Bruce Lee dies." Barriers were needed to hold back the crowds outside the Kowloon funeral, highlighting the widespread sorrow and the huge interest from the public. Another headline eerily revealed, "Cannabis found in Lee's stomach," says a government chemist at the Bruce Lee inquest, suggesting possible drug use. There was also a headline that seemed like it came out of a detective story. Bruce Lee, taken down by the ninjas, a deadly encounter with a Japanese assassin, a toxic plant by night, and self-administered sniffs of cocaine. These stories varied widely, from somewhat believable to completely outlandish, including ideas about delayed death strikes, ongoing vendettas with the triad crime syndicates, and even theories suggesting Lee had staged his own death to secretly fight against drug cartels within the triads. These stories sparked a huge amount of guessing and the creation of conspiracy theories that are now just as famous as Lee's movies and his skill in martial arts. One of the most fascinating ideas is that Lee fell victim to a delayed death strike. This comes from stories in martial arts where it's said that someone can hit you in such a way that you don't die until much later. There's also talk about a serious conflict with the triads, the well-known criminal groups in Asia, suggesting that Lee's passing wasn't an accident, but rather a deliberate act of violence against him. And maybe the most captivating theory of them all is the belief that Lee might still be alive. This theory suggests he faked his own death either to get away from being famous or to do secret work away from the attention of both the public and the press. These intriguing theories added layers of mystery and excitement to Lee's story, turning his life and death into a topic of endless discussion. The idea of a delayed death strike is particularly interesting because it suggests a hidden knowledge and power within martial arts that could reach beyond the immediate moment of conflict, embodying the mystical side of these practices. The speculation around a feud with the triads adds a dark and dangerous element to Lee's story, painting his death as a consequence of battling against powerful and shadowy forces. And the theory that he might have staged his death opens up a whole realm of possibilities about what Lee could have been planning or avoiding, making people wonder about the lengths to which he might have gone to protect his privacy or engage in secret missions. Each theory contributes to the legend of Bruce Lee, ensuring that his legacy continues to intrigue and inspire questions, even decades after his death. The numerous theories about Bruce Lee's passing, each one more complicated than the one before, leads us to ask a crucial question. Why does Bruce Lee's death continue to be a topic that so many people speculate and create conspiracy theories about? A big part of its curiosity stems from Lee's own status as a legend. He was a cultural hero who overcame the racial barriers of Hollywood and brought Chinese martial arts into the spotlight for people in the Western world. His life was like a story out of a book, filled with incredible talent, pioneering achievements, and a depth of thinking that touched the hearts of millions across the globe. Lee's life was extraordinary, and his impact was immense. He was not just a martial artist. He was a visionary who changed how the world saw martial arts and Asian actors. His unexpected death at the young age of 32 only made people more intrigued by him, turning him into a figure surrounded by secrets and open to all sorts of stories and interpretations. This transformation made his story even more captivating, as it invited people to fill in the gaps with their own theories and explanations. Lee's death wasn't just the end of a life, it was the beginning of a legend that would grow and evolve with time. People's fascination with him didn't just stem from his accomplishments, but also from the questions that his premature death left unanswered. This combination of his groundbreaking life and mysterious death has made Bruce Lee's story a rich soil for speculation, conspiracy theories, and myth-making, as people continue to be drawn to the enigma of his life and the untimely nature of his passing. Now here's a question to ponder. If Bruce Lee were indeed alive, what would he make of the myths that have sprung up around his supposed demise? Would he be amused, bewildered, or perhaps see it as the ultimate testament to his enduring legacy? In this exploration of Bruce Lee's death and the emerging theories, we're reminded of the power of storytelling and the human desire to find meaning in the inexplicable. As we delve deeper into this mystery, let us not lose sight of the man behind the legend, whose life and work have inspired countless individuals around the world. But as we journey through the tangled web of speculation, one must wonder, will we ever truly know what happened to Bruce Lee? Or is the truth forever destined to be as elusive as the man himself? And now, as we contemplate the complexities surrounding Bruce Lee's legacy, consider this. How does the nature of celebrity and the public's fascination with the lives of the famous influence our understanding of history and truth? In the dimly lit areas of fame and the remaining light of fame, the passing of well-known people often turns into long and complicated stories filled with secrets, guesses, and deep interest. These tales, spun from uncertainties and disbelief, capture everyone's attention, leading to many conspiracy theories that try to solve the mysterious endings of those who once captivated audiences everywhere. Take Avril Lavigne's story, for example. It turned into a tale so strange, it almost feels like it's made up. There were whispers that the pop-punk queen was secretly replaced by someone who looks just like her, a story that started from a blog in Brazil. Even though the person who came up with the story later said it was untrue, the story kept on going. It shows how much we're drawn to the idea that the famous people we think we know might not be who they appear to be. The sad airplane accident that took the lives of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper, which is sadly remembered as the day the music died, has also been covered in guesses and theories. One shocking claim was that the crash wasn't an accident, but happened because of a gunshot fired inside the airplane. This idea was heavily questioned and finally proven wrong through the digging up and examination of the Big Bopper, which showed no proof of such a claim. This provided some peace to their families, who were mourning. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, is maybe one of the most talked about celebrities in the area of rumors after death. There are stories about him being taken by aliens or secretly working as an FBI agent and being put into a witness protection. These stories, helped by the late release of his autopsy results, keep adding to the image of a man whose death might be just as mysterious as his life was famous. In a more recent story, Paul Walker's sudden death in a car accident led to theories that sound like they're from a thriller movie, suggesting he found about a conspiracy related to charity money which led to his murder. This theory plays into our common mistrust of powerful groups, in our belief in the bravery of those we look up to. Robin Williams' death, a deep loss felt worldwide, wasn't left out of conspiracy theories, which suggested his passing was due to an Illuminati sacrifice. This theory, weirdly connected to a Family Guy episode that happened by chance, shows how even in sadness, the search for meaning, or someone to blame, can go in very strange directions. The vanishing of Richie Edwards, a songwriter and guitarist for the Manic Street Preachers, tells a sad story of a bright star disappearing into the darkness, never to be seen again. Even though he was officially declared dead, sightings and theories about him faking his death keep his memory in a state of uncertainty between hope and grief. Bob Marley's death, said to be from cancer, is wrapped in a story fit for a spy book, with claims of a CIA plot that involved poisoned shoes. This theory touches on how politics and fame mix, and how the impact of iconic figures can be seen as threats that need to be secretly dealt with in the most wicked of ways. Lisa Left Eye Lopes' sudden accident, predicted by her own feelings of an upcoming death, adds a mystical aspect to the story of celebrity deaths. Her belief that an evil spirit was after her, which then mistakenly took a child with the same last name, tells a sad story of destiny and fear. James Dean's passing, surrounded by stories of cursed cars and dark magic, feels like it's straight out of a Hollywood movie, highlighting the myth that follows those who live quickly and die young. The warnings he got on his last day highlight the theme of fate that often comes with stories of young people whose lives end too soon. Sightings of Steve Jobs around the world after his death fuel theories that he faked his own death just to get away from the public eye. These stories, whether they come from real sightings or just the collective unwillingness to let go, highlight how hard it is to accept the end of life, especially for those who live so brightly in front of everyone. We've explored Bruce Lee's mysterious death, but what's your take? Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Thanks for watching.